let's get Obsidian open. This is the basic screen, right? Mine probably looks a little bit different because I'm not running it on the default. Obsidian's default is a dark mode with light text and a purple accent, and I'm using a theme for light mode that gives me rainbow colors. Other than that, it's all the same. It's just Obsidian. When I first started using Obsidian, when I first considered starting using Obsidian, I watched a ton of YouTube videos, and I know I felt very overwhelmed, and I wasn't sure like how to get started because it felt like I needed to know how everything worked before I could use it. And it seemed like there was a lot to learn, and there were so many plugins, and like it was a lot. But after I like got in and started using it and stuff, I figured out it's not actually a lot. It's pretty simple. It's not a fancy schmancy program with a gajillion things going on and stuff. What Obsidian is an interface for plain text documents. That's it. And what it does is use like Markdown in real time, and it allows you to work in multiple documents at once and connect them. That's it. That's what Obsidian does. Pretty much everything else is just a way to look at those documents and the connections between them. Once you get used to the lingo that Obsidian uses, the language that they use, it's pretty easy to figure out. The main folder is the name. It can be named anything. This is just the type of note-taking system I use, so that's what I named my vault. But you can create a new vault. A vault is just a folder. It's a folder that holds your documents. That's it. Your documents in Obsidian are called notes. That's why this says create a new note. It's just opening up a new document. And then the connections, because you can link to other documents within a document. It's just links and backlinks. That's it. Like that is the core function of Obsidian. So I can show you here. Here's that folder, the vault, literally just a folder in my documents. That's it. You open it, and inside is the other folders that I have: bibliography, images, transcripts, templates, and then the individual files, right? So let's open this one. And then we'll open it here. And you can see that it's pretty much exactly the same, except for where this line break is, where these links are. You can see the markdown in Notepad because Obsidian just uses the markdown in real time to show you. You can click into source mode, and then you can see the same markdown as is visible in Notepad. Like, that's it. They're literally just documents, and Obsidian is a way to look at them, a way to create them. So what Obsidian is not is a word processor like Word or a writing program like Scrivener. There's no page formatting, margin settings, there's none of that kind of stuff. It's just a text editor, and it uses Markdown. Markdown should probably be a little bit familiar because it's what Discord uses. So let's get a new note and try it out. Multiple ways to do a note. There's multiple ways to do pretty much anything in here because it's trying to be user-friendly to different kinds of work styles. So you can click here, you can hit Control-N, or you can hit this button over here. You'll get a new note. There's the option to title it, and then you're in the text editor part basically where you can write what you want. Pretty simple. The markdown, right? So you have 6 headings, which uses the hashtag. So hashtag space, and then you're in your heading, and there's 6 of them. Okay, so really quick, I don't want to mislead anyone. So like I said, I was using a theme that makes this rainbow. Let me show it to you really quick in Discord's default, in case that's what you're working in. It doesn't have the colors. It's just going to be regular looking text. Which is one of the reasons I put a theme on, is I color code things in real life and I like colors, so I use a theme that gives me colors. I'm gonna put it back because I really don't like light text on dark backgrounds. Okay, so my theme has rainbow colors. I love it. Oops. Okay, so for text formatting, this is the part that's probably the most familiar because, you know, again, Discord uses it. So you have your asterisks for italics and your double asterisks for bold. Well, I don't know why I put a space in there. The little squiggles for strike through. Equal signs to highlight text. So that's like all the same stuff that you use all the time in Discord. Should be super duper easy and familiar, right? If you don't want to do like the asterisks and stuff, Obsidian does, even though it's technically using Markdown, you can just use a regular keyboard shortcuts like Control-I and it'll put the asterisks up there. And then you can just Control-I and it'll kick you out of the asterisks or whatever you're doing for your formatting. Also, you can right click and those options will be there as well. And here's where like you can get your headings and stuff. So again, different ways to do the same thing, trying to be user-friendly. It's pretty user-friendly once you realize that it's user-friendly. You can also link to stuff. Use double brackets, and then it'll pull up this menu that you can scroll through, and it theoretically has every single one of your notes in there, which I don't actually have very many. Other people have thousands. I'm nowhere near there. You can also start to just type it if you know the title or want to narrow down what the menu's showing you. So let's do that. The other thing is that you can change the display text of your links. So double bracket, and then you go back into your link and you put a bar in, and now you can type in what you want it to display. It still is a link that's going to take us to the document. It just now looks more smooth. You can link to different headings or blocks of text within a document. I don't have any text blocks, but I'll show you how to link to a heading. So you can say double bracket again, but to get to a heading, you use that hash symbol. Brings up the headings. This is a little misleading because I typed heading 3, but if these were titled, like if this was document 5 and going to New Hampshire or whatever, it would say document 5 going to New Hampshire. So let's link to heading 3. And now that links up to here. I'll click on these and show you. So real quick, click here, takes you to East Blue Note. Click here, takes you to Alabasta Note. Click here, pops you up to heading 3. So links are super handy. The other thing you can do is that you can embed things in your page as well. So, wow, spelling is difficult. That's probably still wrong. Whew. Okay, so to embed stuff, you put an exclamation point in front of your double bracket. You can embed notes. Let's do a short one so it doesn't take up a whole bunch of space, right? And now that whole note is just in this document, right? There's a link so you can go to it. Wow. You can embed images. So let's do this really quick. That'll be fine. Yep. Look at, there's Luffy being a happy little kid. So you can see here where I have these things and you can't see the markdown that I typed. If you want to see the markdown, you can go up here and hit source mode, and it undoes the using of the markdown and just shows it. So you can see the hashtags, you can see the asterisks, you can see all of that stuff. And then if you want to see what it looks like when the markdown's being fully implemented and is not editable, like say if you were going to post this to a blog or something, this little book, or in this menu, this reading view, makes it so this is like what it actually looks like. It's interactive in the way that it would be on a screen. Also, if you hover, you get a preview that you can scroll in. But I can't go in and type and edit it. This is reading mode, right? You go back up, switch it back into editing mode. So these are all internal links. You can do external links. You can link to a website. You can link to a picture somewhere else, etc. I just never do. So I don't have the code memorized. That being said, there is this website that I have saved that just has a list of all the different markdown tools or code or whatever that you can use in Obsidian, and kind of gives you examples of that. Obviously, some of these things I've shown you and some of them I have not. And it's partly just because this is based on what I use versus everything that's available. I have done a footnote once, actually. But yeah, so I just have this saved, so if there's ever anything that I do want to do that I don't know how to do, I can just have a quick little reference. Obviously, there is a ton of stuff that you can do in Obsidian. It's a pretty flexible program because it's so simple, in my opinion. It leaves itself open to being used however you want. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos made by people who are coders or coding. They work in software development and stuff. Because again, this is basically just a text editor, so it's really easy to code in. I've seen a lot of people say that they use it for Dungeons and Dragons and doing campaigns and stuff. And in my imagination, not having ever DM'd for Dungeons and Dragons, I would use it in that way. Each campaign would have its own vault, and then within that I would have different folders and files and stuff that would kind of map out the adventure. If I had maps or visuals, then those could be embedded in here, etc. You can toggle things on, toggle things off. There's like checkboxes, so like super flexible in that way. I've watched one gal who, she's in graduate school and she is attempting to write her dissertation in it. However, she's struggling to write her dissertation in it. So I don't know, like, writing wise in it. I haven't watched any videos of anybody who does anything fiction wise in it. For me, I write by hand in notebooks and I use Scrivener and I love Scrivener. I'm very happy with that for me and I'm not looking to change it. I do not write in Obsidian at all. I use Obsidian for a very specific purpose. It is for my notes, period. And I only very recently started this, so like don't think I'm an expert or anything. But I started taking notes using the Zettelkasten system, which is why my vault is called Zettelkasten. It's the type of notes that I'm taking. And so I have my stuff arranged. Here's a folder, and all of my bibliographic notes go in here, which is just a note that has the citation and then links to all of the notes that I took from that. When a bibliographic note is incomplete, it looks more like this, where it has a whole bunch of stuff just here, and then I go through and I organize it into tidier notes that are then linked to each other and other notes. These notes, once I've taken them, are pretty simple and basic, right? It has the text here, some line breaks, some links, and then the specific quote that I pulled from the text that my notes are based off of. Very simple, straightforward, not really taking advantage of a lot of the markdown options, right? Just line breaks and links. However, the notes that I've been taking for One Piece are different and more involved. So if we go and look at that, we can see a little bit more of how I am and you can use Markdown inside of Obsidian in a more flexible way, right? So this is the bibliography note for One Piece, which you can see it's arranged a little bit differently from the other ones. I don't want to scroll down because I don't know if I have any spoilers there, but you can see very straightforward and basic, whereas I have a whole bunch of different sections depending on what I'm doing. Leave notes to myself on what I'm working on, that kind of stuff. So in these individual pages, you can see that I have it totally different from the more simple style notes that I have, right? I have this heading that is describing which part of the manga that I'm taking notes on. I list out in a smaller heading the volume and chapters that this saga takes place in. I've included a link here, a navigation link that simply links to the next part of my notes. I have a table of contents with links to the sections where those notes occur. I have another link that takes us even farther. I have a link back to my bibliographic note. And then I have my notes where I have headings. I use bulleted lists. I have further links to screenshots. Down these bottom, in these screenshots, I have embedded images of conversations that I had because that is what I was building my notes off of, were comments, reactions, and conversations that I had while reading One Piece that I then went back and built notes out of. This is a pretty thin page because I wasn't really reacting or commenting on it at this point. But so let's click forward, and now you can see we have a previous and a next in navigation links. A little more, more links actually functioning here because I have some things to say. It isn't until, if we go back to our bibliographic note, it wasn't until later on that I had a lot more to say. So if we go look at Thriller Bark, same basic layout here up at the top, but I have significantly more notes through those sections. And you can fold these for, I don't know, like easy getting stuff out of the way navigation. I have also included links that return you to the top for easy navigation. If we hop down to the screenshots, you can see more embedded screenshots, and then you can also fold those up so that they're not 1,000 miles long. And I have included links to other notes that I think are relevant to things that happened in this arc. So you can see I use the Markdown a lot more in these types of notes versus my more straightforward, more accurately Zettelkasten style notes. This is fully just freeform, winging it, what makes sense to me right now. And then I also have some slightly more individual pages that I don't want to go too far, that I'm building as I go. as I work through this. So that's OP notes that are more involved and take advantage of Markdown. Okay, so now that I've shown you kind of some of how I use it, let me show you some of the tools that it has, that Obsidian has, like to look at all of the stuff, part of what makes Obsidian a good interface. First of all, I've talked a lot about links in the Zettelkasten system that I'm using. Links are vital, and also it makes for good navigation, right? So on this right hand panel that pops out, there is the option to view backlinks. So backlinks are any other documents that link back to the document that you're looking at. So all of these have a link in them to this document. You have outgoing links, which is any link in here that goes out to somewhere else. Tags, which over here, tags is a pretty useless button because it then just opens up a list like you searched tags. There's an outline view, which I don't use personally, but I feel like it could be a very good organizational view, because it shows all of the headings you have and then subheadings underneath each of those headings, so you can see how that would be useful. And then this is just properties, which I don't use. I think that's more geared towards people who use it for coding. It's not me. So those are some pretty handy little tools over here. The text editor area itself, I've shown you like the reading mode and stuff. It has this menu. It's pretty normal. Like, you can look at stuff, you can rename stuff, you can move stuff. Like, it's a pretty basic menu. It's not super complicated. One of the fun things is that the screen is infinitely splittable. So you can split it right, and you can split it down over and over and over and over as many times as you want or need to. It gets a little ridiculous, right? Nobody needs all of that. You just close the tabs and it goes away. I do use the split right pretty frequently to reference things. Like, I'll have my list open, I'll have the document I'm working in, and then I'll have something that I'm referencing, an image or whatever. So that's a pretty common tool that I use. Across the top here, this opens and closes. This designates what's visible in this panel. So it's your files, your search, and then bookmarks, which again, I haven't used yet, but I can see how they would be useful. This is a new note, a new folder. You can change the sort order. I just have mine alphabetical. And then you can collapse any open folders that you might have. I generally leave my bibliography folder open. And then down over here, this is slightly customizable. You can add or remove buttons here with limitations because there's just not that many options for buttons. And also in the settings, you can remove this ribbon entirely if you don't want it to be there. I typically don't use these top two. This is a command palette where you can find different commands and their associated keyboard shortcuts. I just don't do very much like that. This is like a search for notes. Again, much more useful if you have thousands of notes. I do not, so I don't use it. There is, I'm going to do these buttons backwards. There is this graph view, which is pretty cool within the Zettelkasten system. If I'm looking for something to see how I've connected it to other ideas, this is a really cool visual way to do it instead of just a list of links, because as you can see, like, it creates like the main hub. You hover over it and it shows you all of the stuff that it is linked to. It highlights it and fades out the other stuff, so you can kind of mess around and play with that. And there are a bunch of little settings up here where you can include tags or attachments. Hold on, let me show you. All of the photos and images I have in here count as attachments, so I don't typically have attachments visible because there's a lot of them. Orphans are any files that aren't currently linked, so all these individual dots would be orphans. If I took off this, they would go away, but just because I haven't connected them doesn't mean that they're not important. And then you can adjust the settings here, but I mostly get them set and leave them. This is actually related to something else. over on this menu in the linked view, you can open a local graph, and it's just a smaller version of just the single note with what it's linked to. Here you can change how many links out it shows. So this is a link depth of 2, so it's the single link and then the next link. And you can play with that if you're looking for specific things. And then this one, some people love it, some people hate it, some people get programs just because it's something that's available, but it's basically a flat workspace that you can put empty cards on and type whatever you want, like I like cheese. You can put any of your notes in there, so like let's do our friend note. Look at that. And you can scroll within the friend note. They're all resizable, so you can make them as big as you want or as small as you want. You can change the color here. When you click into it, it gets this little menu, delete. You can change the color, you can search within it, or you can edit the note. So let's make this one my favorite color, and we'll make this one yellow for cheese. You can put pictures in, and then you can connect them. These little dots that pop up on the edge allow you to do connections between the things you have put on your canvas. You can do them so that they go both ways as well. So now these are arrows. You can label the lines as well. You can obviously zoom out. So if you have a ton of cards, like I feel like this would be really good for like planning out a story. Like you could have character cards and scene cards and organize them and do this kind of flow between them and then rearrange them as necessary. So that's Canvas. It's got kind of a cool workflow space to it. I haven't really used it because again, I've only just been taking notes. It saves in your vault just like any other file does, except it will be labeled with this little canvas note next to the side, letting you know that it's not a note, it's a canvas. So you can have a lot of canvases if you so choose. Obviously, you can also title them like Luffy and Cheese is our new note. And then again, because I have it alphabetical, it pops it up here where it goes. And then you can also just delete it. The last one here is insert template, which actually, let me go back to our friend note. A template is something that you create that can then just be plopped into any other document. So I only have timestamps. This is the one that I use the most. It's just super basic, and I usually stick it in a document if I'm writing something old and I have new thoughts about it. So I'll stick this in to mark the new thoughts. So I know that they're different, like they occurred at different times than from what I was writing. It took me a while to figure out templates. It took me a while to figure out how to get it to do the current date and time. If you look at my actual templates and you look at this, it took me a long time to figure out how to do this. Honestly, I struggled a lot. However, making a template is actually super duper easy. You just do a note, like I'm going to do a complicated one, or what I think will look complicated, just to show you how easy it is. So we've seen how I have all the stuff going on in my OP notes. And so what I could do to make a template to make that easier is I can put in all of the parts that I use in every single note and then stick it into a file, into a template file, so that I can just insert template into every new major note that I have for one piece. Okay, that's it. And now what I need to do is take it from where it is saved here and stick it in my templates folder. I can drag and drop it. Sometimes that's way too far. It doesn't like scroll if you're dragging things. So you can just go up here and go to your move to file and hit where you want it to be. And now it's in my templates folder, which means that it will come up in my templates list and I can stick it into any note. Actually, rather than that, let's do this. And now I can stick it in there, and everything that I put in that template note is in this file to just fill in the blanks. So templates are really, really handy if you're going to be doing the same kind of format over and over and over, or if you're going to want to stick something in over and over and over. I'm a big fan. It doesn't look like I use them a whole lot, but I do. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete that because I'm not really using it. The other thing is that there are what appear to be a lot of settings, right? You come down here and you open settings and there's all of this stuff. It's mostly just like set it and forget it things. How do you want your editor to do stuff? Like live preview is where you type in the markdown and it automatically does what the markdown's supposed to do. If you put it in source mode, it no longer does what the markdown is supposed to do until it becomes like published on a blog on the internet or whatever. So it's really just things that you prefer. I showed you how to fold headings. You can turn that off if you don't like it. I have this set to a readable line length, which is this fixed width here. If you turn it off, it goes from edge to edge. Probably really useful for people who code, not people who write. So yeah, a lot of this is just set it and forget it how you want the thing to work. If you add something to your dictionary in spell check that you don't mean to, you can go here and remove it. Maybe I've done that once or twice before, but all of these settings are just how do you want it to function? How do you want it to work? Delete files, take it to the system trash. Where do you want new notes in your vault folder? There's like an infinite number of hotkeys settings that you can adjust and fix. I have only gone into this a little bit, and as I've used Obsidian, I think there are a few more of these that I will set as keyboard shortcuts. So this I think could be really useful. I haven't really messed with it much, but if you're a shortcuts kind of person, there you go. The appearance, I messed with the theme a little bit earlier on. It's really nice. You can literally just go into like themes and you go to manage and it brings up all the themes that people have made for Obsidian, and you can check them out and see if you like them. Let me see if there's one in here that has good sample pictures. Yeah, so, and then you can just install it and try it out. You can uninstall them really easy. I just have Everforest installed, which is this. There is a dark mode for it that keeps the rainbow colors. So if you want the rainbow colors but also a dark mode, that's an option. I, again, am a light mode girly, so that's what I've got. But like, you can choose the fonts for things if you have font needs. I know some folks with dyslexia have font preferences. I do not. So again, a lot of this is stuff that I've never messed with. I said you could turn this ribbon off. That's like this here, this title bar. You can make this go away on all of your little notes. Like, it's just kind of normal settings. You have your core plugins and your community plugins. Core plugins are what come with Obsidian. They're pretty normal things. I've not messed with this. Backlinks, obviously, I love. Bookmarks I haven't used, but I probably will. Canvas you can turn on and off. The command palette you can turn on and off. Like I said, you could customize this a little bit. Like if I turn this off, it would remove the button. The daily notes is opened by a lot of people who use Obsidian as a planning system. I use a bullet journal. So in my head, a daily note would be like the day's page in a bullet journal where I take notes, where I do to-do lists, etc. It just, you open it up at the beginning of your day or whatever, and it automatically creates a note with the day's timestamp and stuff. Like, if that's cool with you, use it. If it's not, don't use it. So it's just, these are all built in to the software that you can turn on, turn off. There's a word count. It's down here. I love having the word count on, so I leave it on. I obviously love templates, so that's on. But you can turn it all off. You can turn on /commands like we use in Discord if you want to go that far with Markdown. I do not, right? Like, it's just customizable stuff. These are quick access settings to any of these rather than having to go into core plugins, find the thing, and then hit the settings button. You can just click into here and it'll give you whatever settings are available for that core plugin. Community plugins are plugins made by other people to work with Obsidian, and there's a bajillion of them. You have to turn restricted mode off to be able to use them. That's pretty basic stuff. And then it's just built right in. You can just go browse, and there's a gajillion of them. And I would argue that most of them are probably not useful. However, some of them are useful. Something that I would recommend paying attention to is the update day, where a lot of these are saying updated 4 days ago, updated 2 months ago, updated 19 days ago. Awesome. Those are probably plugins that are super functional for the people who want to work with them. If you get one like this, updated 3 years ago, it's probably going to have some issues functioning within the current Obsidian. It's just they've updated the software, and if the plugins aren't updated to accommodate whatever changes are made, then it's probably going to have some issues. It might work, it might not work, it might partially work, whatever. I have almost no plugins installed because, again, you've seen my notes, they're pretty basic. I do have smart typography, which allows me to do like curly quotes. I have the M- and N- option turned on. You can turn the N- off if you don't want it. Ellipses, I have the little arrow guys. I cannot pronounce that word, I'm sorry. So it's got, I don't have these on. I don't like that. But so I use the smart typography just to give me a little bit more of that standard, typing feel. And then I have tab switcher, which allows me to tab through like with my keyboard as if, like in the same way that you would if you were in a web browser, so that I don't have to always click on them. I can just tab through them. I have a third community plugin that I am not using, Typewriter Scroll. The issue with this, I'm probably gonna uninstall it pretty quickly. The issue with this is that it's one of those ones that has not been updated in a really long time, and so it doesn't quite work correctly with the modern Obsidian. I got it because I love the typewriter scroll feature on Scrivener, where it just keeps my text in the middle of my document as I write. Like, it's just not a plugin for me, actually. I do like these ones. I do use these ones. I don't use any others. I initially had a huge list of plugins. Like, there's a plugin that will help integrate Zotero with Obsidian. There's plugins for like a video player. There's plugins that give you little calendars. There's plugins for freaking everything. And for what I am using Obsidian for, I don't really need any of them. So that's it. I feel like Obsidian looks incredibly intimidating, and it's not really intimidating. It's just unfamiliar and really, 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 really flexible. Like, so-and-so's going to use it one way, and Jim Bob's going to use it another way, and I'm going to use it one way, and Kellyanne is going to use it a totally different way, and you guys are going to use it differently. Like, so flexible because it's so simple. So I feel like that really is kind of where the intimidation factor comes from. I am a huge fan of Obsidian, and since I have been obsessed with One Piece since this spring, I have spent a lot of time in Obsidian taking my notes on One Piece. I don't foresee that stopping anytime soon, since I'm about to start rereading it and taking new notes from a reread perspective instead of a first impressions perspective. So yeah, that basically wraps up my thoughts on Obsidian and a lot of the tools that are available within it and what you can do with it. I hope that it was helpful and maybe helpful in like demystifying it, de-intimidatingifying it. Yeah, bye.